Join me today as we talk about Captain America 4 Brave New World. This is the Geek Cabal channel. My name is Bobbie, and today we're going to be talking about Captain America 4 Brave New World. I watched this over the weekend at Indiana Comic Con. That's why we're still recording here. It's my friend's house. And yeah, so let's see. I'll try to do some non-spoilery talk because the movie came out pretty recently. I'm obviously still in theater, so... overall, I thought the movie was okay. I didn't have any major problems with it. There's a few parts that I thought, well, that doesn't quite make sense, or this kind of feels a little disjointed. But overall, I'm not really getting some of the complaints I've seen leveled at the movie. I didn't think it was boring. I don't have a problem with Falcon as Captain America. One, it is comic accurate. Two, I kind of like Anthony Mackie. Seems like an okay guy. He did say some things kind of in the lead up to the movie at a press conference that I think I know what he was trying to say, and he just said it in a really inelegant way. I'm willing to give him the benefit of the doubt there, because I've never really heard him say anything like really off the stupid deep end. So I'm assuming this was I'm assuming he meant it one way, and but I'm not going to go into that because I don't remember exactly what he said. I don't want to misquote him. So, but anyway, like I said, I liked him. I liked him as Falcon. I liked him as Captain America. Obviously, there's differences with him being Captain America, which they kind of address in the movie. President Ross literally tells him, "You're no Steve Rogers." And we have the fact that he doesn't have the super soldier serum, and that's becomes relevant in the movie. And also, it's a setup where I almost kind of expected more commentary on the fact that he is a black guy, and representing America, and for better or worse, there's potentially some baggage with things like that. I'm kind of happy they didn't go into that super heavily. I mean, they kind of did with Isaiah Bradley, and that's a case of again, he's a known character from the comics. He has a known backstory, and I don't mind them exploring that in the movies. It's relevant, and I kind of wish there would have been a scenario where he would have met Steve, and Steve would have found out about some of the more awful things the government did. And that's kind of a thing from the comics is, half the time Steve's telling the government to stick it where the sun don't shine. He doesn't answer to the government. That's not America as far as Steve is concerned. America is the ideal, the dream, and not necessarily who's been elected. I mean, he acknowledges the authority of the government, but he doesn't acknowledge any level of nobility to the government. He acknowledges that, yes, they were elected, they're in charge, they've got the army and everything, but that doesn't make them the good guys. And as often as not in the comics, they're not. So I don't mind, seeing some of that. That is nice. Because again, like I've said about Captain America and the Winter Soldier, one of my favorite of the Marvel movies. A big part of the plot is that, no, you probably really shouldn't trust the government. You definitely shouldn't trust them with roving death bots. They don't need them. And if they want them, they probably have sinister intentions. And even if they don't, there's no guarantee that someone down the line who gets elected or gains power won't have nefarious intentions. You just stop all that just by not letting them have them in the first place. And, that's a larger conversation that goes on political stuff that I'm not going to go into, but there's meaning there. This movie didn't quite have that substance. But also, it was not because President Ross gets elected, and there wasn't really any kind of allegory or allusions to or the recent election in the United States. So that was nice that wasn't. I don't even think I heard what party Ross was supposed to have been in. So yeah, it just talks about a contentious election, and Ross wanting to be a unifier. America together is like his campaign slogan, and then it jumps forward a few months after the election. So yeah, and so overall, like I said, overall I thought the movie was good. I didn't really see any like problems with the CGI anywhere, but I'm no expert. Like, 'cause I see some videos and people are like, oh, that's really crappy CGI for reasons X, Y, and Z. And I'm like, on the one hand, I find that fascinating. On the other hand, like, I don't care. Like, if it looks convincing to me, that's all that really matters to me. So, and I didn't really notice anything that looked really off. There are a couple, like I said, there's a couple issues with the plot that I have some issues with, and I'll get to that once I get to the spoilered section. But overall, I found it entertaining. Anthony Mackie, pretty much on point. Harrison Ford, as good as General Ross, well, President Ross. And very similar to Iron Man 2, where there's that moment where Rhodes comes into the Senate hearing at the very beginning of the movie, and Robert Downey Jr.'s, Stark is like, "Oh, you're here," and he's like, "Look, I'm here. Let's just get on with it." And there's a subtext to that because Terrence Howard was replaced, and I cannot think of the gentleman who replaced him, and that's really awful because I actually like him as an actor. Wow, should have written that down before I started. I apologize, folks. I'm apparently not very good at this whole movie thing. I don't know why I keep doing it, but yeah. So he, so there's a subtext of, look, clearly I'm not the actor that was playing him in the last movie, but I'm here now. Let's just move on. So we have that kind of moment also where Falcon, when he meets with the president, it's like, oh, I like the new look, because it's Harrison Ford instead of William Hurt, because he passed away. And, they kind of brushed it off like, yeah, they told me I had to shave the mustache. Lose the mustache or lose the election, because Harrison Ford's clean shaven. Although in a flashback, he does have the big mustache, which was kind of funny. And I see why they went with no mustache. Like, Harrison Ford doesn't look overly great with a mustache. So yeah, so there's a subtext to that comment. So I thought that was good. But yeah, like I said, overall, I like the movie. I like the fact that at least one of the movies was like, guys, at some point, we have to tackle what happened in the Eternals. Like, there's a giant like upper torso and two arms of a demigod sticking out of the Indian Ocean, and we don't talk about that at all in any of the movies. Like, this is like a major world-changing thing. Like, this probably should have like altered the axial tilt of the Earth with the shifted mass and everything. But the other movie's just been kind of like, yeah, so, nothing's happened lately. No, giant statue, what the hell are you talking about? And so finally one of them had to actually like address the issue. And then what they use it for is brilliant. So I'll get to that here in the spoilered section. So to summarize, I think it's good. I do think it's on the better end of the MCU. I don't think it's like the upper echelon. I don't know where to place it for within the Captain America movies because the second one is so good. My personal ranking of the Captain America movies is 2, 3, 1. As far as like best to worst, mind you, worst is still way better than most of the rest of the MCU. So I'd probably go 2, 3, 4, 1, because I think this one is a little bit better than the origin movie, and it's not like I have a problem with the origin movie. I think it's a very entertaining movie, but it doesn't have, like the others have, at least an attempt at some kind of substance, some kind of thought. That one's, punching Nazis, which, we all know who the good guys and the bad guys are in that equation. Like, it's pretty straightforward. So, I like the Red Skull as a villain. Like, not as a person, he's absolute trash, but like as a villain, he's great because he's just like unrepentantly evil, to the point that even some other villains are like, wow, that guy, like, let's not team up with him if we can avoid it, please. So, yeah, that's where I'd place it. Overall, I'd give it, 6.5, maybe 7. You know, it's probably it's probably on par with the first Captain America movie, which I'd probably also put like a 6.5 to a 7. So, yeah, because Winter Soldier is like 9.5 to me, and Civil War is probably about an 8. So yeah, um, yeah, I think that's probably where I'd rank it. So yeah, so if you don't want spoilers, I'm about to get into them. So if you're cutting out here, we always appreciate like, share, subscribe, all that stuff, comments, sharing and commenting. Things help us grow the channel. We always appreciate this. By the way, I apologize if you're sticking around. You're going to hear this spiel again at the end. So all that being said, if you're cutting out here, thank you for watching, and hope to see you on other stuff. But if you're going to continue, we're going into spoilers now. So you have been warned. We are in the spoiler zone. So the main plot centers around a treaty that President Ross is trying to negotiate with India, Japan, and France. That's the one I don't understand because it's things in the Indian Ocean. So I get India and Japan. I would have honestly expected China. And I think they left them out just because there's a part where they end up being in an antagonistic stance with some of these people. And I think they just wanted to avoid potentially angering people in China with that one. That'd be my guess. But like logically, the Chinese, probably the Australians, maybe some other folks, like some of the smaller Southeast Asian countries, like South Korea, maybe Vietnam, Thailand, like I would think these countries, but specifically because of what's happening, South Korea and China, I would have figured because of their industrial and tech sectors. Because what has happened is there's a research facility nearby, and they have discovered a new material within the celestial, adamantium, which they even point out is even more indestructible than vibranium, because it is. Adamantium is the uber indestructible wonder metal from Marvel Comics. It's the thing that Wolverine's skeleton is made out of. It's the thing Ultron was supposed to be made out of. So I'm hoping the rumors of his return are true and he'll finally have the adamantium body that he should have had, because his adamantium body would not have been able to be destroyed the way it was in Age of Ultron. Like Thor, Iron Man, and Vision could blast at that thing all day long for a week straight and wouldn't scratch it if it were adamantium. Like, that's the difference in indestructibility here. So, and I know it's absurd trying to rate levels of indestructibility, but like adamantium is near absolute. The only thing that can damage it, that can really truly hurt it, is a molecular rearranger, because whenever adamantium is made, it's kept in a liquid state until you pour it into the mold, let it cool. That's whenever it becomes indestructible. Now, it's supposed to be an alloy. It's a steel alloy, if I remember right. So I guess it'd technically be an iron alloy, but you know what I mean. Because steel is essentially iron that's been heavily refined. Refined, forged, and a lot of the impurities removed is how you get steel. Then stainless steel has chromium added to it, then which actually makes it weaker. So when it's like those stainless steel swords that people have, you would not want to use them in a sword fight. I mean, you could use them against a person, not that I recommend that, because it's still a sharp piece of metal. But as in terms of an actual weapon, it has flaws that if it repeatedly strikes another piece of metal, could easily be discovered and destroyed. So, little metallurgy side story there. So, adamantium is supposed to be a steel alloy because in the comics, adamantium is an attempt to recreate the metal in Captain America's shield, because Captain America's shield in the comics is not vibranium. It was a metal that was subjected to the energies of the cosmic cube. That's why it has unique physics-defying properties. And the reason it has the shape it is because it was like the metal for a tank turret, or the lid for the turret, the top hatch. And so, so his shield is unique. And adamantium was an attempt to recreate that metal. And they got as far as making it virtually indestructible. Doesn't bounce very well, though. So, yeah, so Wolverine's skeleton, like I said, is coated in adamantium. And Ultron's body is supposed to be adamantium. And then it's to the point that in the comics there are instances of it being destroyed. And they've gone so far as to say, well, that was secondary adamantium. Only like 90% indestructible. Extreme situations can destroy it. So you have that. So now that exists in the MCU, which is a step towards ultimately getting the X-Men, because you need adamantium to be there for Wolverine. Also, I was surprised Canada wasn't a signatory on this thing as well, because Wolverine gets his adamantium skeleton from the Weapon X program, which was carried out, that part of it was carried out in Canada. Captain America is also part of the Weapon Plus program. Weapon X, this is a later like retcon. That's because he's Weapon 10. It's the Roman numeral X. So Captain America, I think, is 1 or 2. So it's basically various attempts at creating super soldiers. So that's some comic lore for you folks there. But so the treaty is to make it so that they're all going to share in this discovery, that they'll all have it, and that they'll work together to produce a lot of it for their various countries. Which again is why it would make more sense for China to be involved, because no matter what we think of them here in the West, potentially, like, it's in the Indian Ocean, it's right there. India would have it, Japan would have it, China would not let that stand. They would definitely be like, hey, what the hell? Like, we've got, depending on how you measure it, either the largest or second largest economy in the world. We have a tech sector. Like, what are you doing? And South Korea, because their advanced tech stuff, would probably be involved. Taiwan might be involved. There could be some tension there with China, though. But yeah, so I think, so that part, I think there should have been other signatories to make it make sense geopolitically, especially when they just randomly includes France. Like, I know that the French love just sticking their nose in everyone else's business, kind of like the Americans seem to. But, like, if you're going to have them, then where are England and Germany? Like, the other major European powers would have also been involved in all likelihood. So, unless they've got a bunch of holdings in Southeast Asia, because I know they lost their holdings in Vietnam, but I don't know about the rest of Southeast Asia. So, because I don't follow French geopolitics. Maybe I should. I don't know. Anyway, so there's that. And then the primary villain is the leader, who we haven't seen since the Incredible Hulk movie from 2008, I think. Yeah, so 17 years ago, I think. So they've been sitting on him for a while. So apparently General Ross has had him holed up in a facility because the gamma stuff he got exposed to in The Incredible Hulk made him significantly more intelligent, and it basically turned his brain into a supercomputer so that he can see probabilities and outcomes and things like that. Really, really like vast. They require vast mental calculations. He's basically a one-man think tank, so they describe him. And then apparently General Ross is like, well, let's pump him full of more gamma rays to make him even smarter. And he's been having him develop weapons and technologies and everything, and also masterminded his electoral campaign on the condition that Ross pardons him and lets him go, which obviously he had no intention of doing. So Ross was also dying at one point, and the leader created a cure for him. What Ross did not know is that the leader, due to his ability to see future outcomes, knew that he was never going to be released, probably. So the pills that he's been taking have been pumping Ross full of gamma radiation. And it's been building and building in his bloodstream, so that the point was to make him lose control, to Hulk out, which happens at the end of the movie. And he becomes the Red Hulk. So you have that. You have part of the plot involves Isaiah Bradley, who, if you've seen the Falcon and the Winter Soldier TV series, you know he was a gentleman, a black gentleman who was experimented on by the government, given the super soldier serum treatment, similar to Steve Rogers trying to recreate it, and ultimately was imprisoned to keep it a secret, and he's kept in prison for decades. Like, and this is comics continuity here. Like, this is awful, and this is the kind of things that the government in the past did, like, and it's awful, So seeing that get some airtime was good. Seeing Falcon trying to Isaiah is justifiably angry at the government. Like, he has every right to be just pissed off to no end at the government. And so Falcon has to kind of thread the needle, because as another service member, he fought and believed in, the ideal. And so he has to, he's trying to get Isaiah to come around, because there's a government function where where he's been invited on the condition he can bring Isaiah. And then the new Falcon, who was also in the Falcon Winter Soldier series, I think his last name is Torres. I think, I apologize if I get that wrong. But he's basically now the new Falcon. And his outfit's a little bit different. He's still got the green fatigue kind of stuff. And and Falcon, by the way, has received some upgrades. His armor and everything is Wakandan. It's got some vibranium stuff built into it, and so that accounts for some of his more superhuman feats. But he also talks to Bucky at one point, and who's running for the Senate, by the way. And we're going to see more on that, I think, in the Thunderbolts movie, because he's in it too, coming out in May. So they talk a little bit, and Falcon is lamenting the fact he didn't take the super soldier serum, and Bucky's like, "No, Sam, you don't understand. Me, Steve, we're the ideal. We're heroes, but we're superhuman. You provide something people can aspire to, because you are human. You don't need fancy serums or anything. What you do is genuine heroics. You're not unstoppable like some of these other people. You're just a guy." He puts it a little more eloquently, but I thought it was actually a pretty good point. And of course, then Falcon's Captain America now is like, "So your speech writer's come up with that?" He goes, "Yeah, I thought it's pretty good. What'd you think?" There's some back and forth. The usual MCU. There's the actual good moment. Got to ruin it with a joke. That's a good joke though. So the whole point is to get Ross to Hulk out, which he does at the end. Then Falcon has to fight him and gets the ever-loving shit knocked out of him. There's no oh, Falcon might win this. No. This is fighting long enough to hopefully diffuse the situation. Now there's an interesting subplot where all throughout, not all throughout the movie, but you keep hearing that Betty won't talk to General Ross. And I genuinely thought through 90% of the movie, this is we just couldn't convince Liv Tyler to come back, so we're just going to talk about it. But she does show up at the very end of the movie. So, but yeah, so he had a real falling out, the whole trying to, hunt down her boyfriend thing, and being just a wild maniac trying to do that. So, Betty's never forgiven him for that, and he's trying to show her that he can be a better man. That's part of what he's doing. And he even tells Sam, because Sam's trying, why did you still have him? Why are you working with him? And he's like, "I was dying. No one could solve it. He solved it." He's like, "I had to live long enough to show Betty that I can be a better person, a different person, so that she will forgive me." And I'm not going to lie. I didn't think there was anything they could do to make me even remotely sympathetic to General Ross. And I was wrong. That kind of hit hard. The old man trying to make up for past mistakes, trying to make things right with his only child, knowing that he's on borrowed time. Yeah, it doesn't make up for the things he's done or anything, but it added some complexity to the character, some sympathy, and so the end where he does see her again and breaks down in tears and everything like that, that was earned. They put in the work. They made it make sense, and Sam facilitated the meeting, because at the end Ross is on the raft because he hulked out and went berserk, and Sam comes to see him and, just make sure he's okay. And, finally he's like, all right, cut to the chase, Sam, why are you here? And he's like, well, one soldier to another, I wanted to make sure that, you were okay. He's like, we don't have to agree on everything, but if we can't see the good in other people, how is anyone ever going to change? And, Ross gets it and he's like, and I, brought someone to see you. And then, Betty comes in. But yeah, and Ross had tasked him, and Ross earlier had asked him to rebuild the Avengers. And at the end, he tells the new Falcon that, it's like when you're up and ready and when you're up out of the hospital, because he gets banged up pretty good. It's like when you're up and moving, like Ross was right about one thing, like we're gonna need the Avengers, like there are threats coming, and we've got to have them. And then the post-credit scene is with the leader, who's also there on the raft. And the leader's like, oh, you Avengers, you don't understand. Like, you fight to save this world, but what are you going to do against the others? And I'm pretty sure what he meant was the incursions, like the other Earths, which also have their own Avengers. So, yeah, because it's setting up for the next Avengers movie, which I think the next two of them center around Secret Wars, the Jonathan Hickman iteration, where ultimately all of reality gets destroyed and the only thing left is Battle World, held together by Doom, who becomes God Almighty. And omnipotent, but not omniscient. Very important distinction there. But yeah, so that's definitely what's coming there. But yeah, like I said, like the movie, didn't really have any like major complaints. Like I said, there should have been some other signatories. Also, the idea of the Japanese Navy fighting the American Navy is just preposterous. Like, the Japanese Navy doesn't... There is no Japanese Navy. Like, we have, like, 17 aircraft carrier groups. Like, they have none. Like, what are they going to do? And also, one of my only, like, this doesn't make any logical sense moments is when the Japanese and American fighter planes do go at each other. The Japanese are using F-35s. At the moment, the most advanced fighter plane in the world. I think it's the only fifth-generation fighter that actually works. The American side, for some reason, are using F-18s. And that doesn't make any sense, considering it's the United States who manufactures the F-35. So, why is Japan using the super advanced American fighter, and the Americans are using the still fairly advanced, but not super advanced F-18? It didn't make any sense because the Americans would have known what they were going up against because they would have sold the Japanese the F-35s. So would have brought some of their own. Because against an F-18, the F-35 should, I believe, completely dominate it. Because the F-35 has stealth capability, at least as far as I'm aware. So, and should have superior maneuverability and everything. So, yeah. Also, due to current world events, I keep seeing a lot of people claim that the United States has built a kill switch into the F-35s. Which, if that were the case, they would have just been like, and shut them down. So, yeah. I don't know if that's true or not, though. I think it's mainly just people on Twitter who think they speak for their respective foreign governments. And, well, they don't. Their respective foreign governments don't give a shit about their opinion. But, yeah, they, yeah. So that was a little odd. Just seemed off. Seemed like they should have been reversed. But, anyway, that's just a detail that I noticed. Yeah, other than that, like I said, thought it was a decent movie. Better into the MCU. Glad I saw it in the theater. Don't want to have regret like I did with Black Panther 2 for not seeing it in the theater, or for Eternals for watching it at all. God, that movie was no good. But anyway, that's all I've got to say on this one. So let me know what you think down in the comments. Have you seen it? Do you intend on watching it? Does it sound good or not? Why on earth did they use the title Brave New World? Because it had nothing to do with the plot. because the plot to the book is radically different. But yeah, anyway, that's all I've got to say on this one. So, if you like what you saw here, give my pitch from earlier, like, share, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Sharing and commenting would help us grow the channel. We always appreciate it, and I naturally always appreciate all subscriptions. And those of you who've been with us for a while, we always appreciate that. And those of you coming on board, new, we appreciate that just as well. So we appreciate a lot of stuff. We wouldn't be here without you folks. Well, I mean, we would be, but we wouldn't have anything to show for it. And we appreciate that. So that's all I got to say. So just remember, in the words of Stan Lee, Excelsior!